US president makes a stunning claim as controversy grows about meetings between Donald Trump associates and the Russian ambassador. Caught in the crossfire, the Red Cross says civilians may have been exposed to a chemical attack in Mosul. We're live from Iraq. And later, the hotel that's getting a lot of attention for what some are calling the worst view ever. Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade. This is CNN Newsroom. Thanks for joining us. The president has leveled some serious allegations at former US President Barack Obama. Donald Trump, in a series of tweets Saturday morning, accused Barack Obama of wiretapping his phones at Trump Tower during the election campaign. Those accusations were made without any evidence or any context. And they come as Attorney General Jeff Sessions prepares to give an amended statement to Congress about his previously undisclosed meetings with the Russian ambassador. You will remember just last month, National Security Advisor Michael Flynn lost his job for misrepresenting his contact with that same diplomat. Well, fallout from these developments is sure to be felt right across the world. We are covering the story from Moscow with our Nic Robertson and also with Ryan Nobles in our Washington studio. Ryan, first to you. This Saturday, the president really should just be concentrating on his golf at his estate in Florida, hoping the Russian story will go away. Instead, he seems to be pouring gasoline on it, adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it, Linda. And you're right, he was golfing this morning at his Palm Beach golf course. But that golf outing did not come until after a series of tweets this morning where he attacked, among other things, the critics of Jeff Sessions as Attorney General. He attacked Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is now the outgoing host of his former show, Celebrity Apprentice. But he also made these serious accusations against former President Barack Obama, accusing him of wiretapping Donald Trump and his associates at Trump Tower. Take a look at a few of these tweets. One reads, "How low has President Obama gone to tap my phones during the very sacred election process? This is Nixon/Watergate. Bad," or in parentheses, "sick guy." He also tweeted, "Is it legal for a sitting president to be wiretapping a race for president prior to an election? Turned down by court earlier, a new low." Now, we should point out that the president nor his White House staff have made any kind of evidence available to us to prove these claims that he's made this morning. And the Obama administration is pushing back on this very fiercely. This is a statement from Kevin Lewis, who is a spokesman for the former president. It reads, "A cardinal rule of the Obama administration was that no White House official ever interfered with any independent investigation led by the Department of Justice. As part of that practice, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Any suggestion otherwise is simply false." So, Linda, you have one of two things here. You either have a current president accusing a former president of doing something illegal, or you have a current president in a situation where he is being investigated by his own Justice Department. We're not 100% sure where the facts lie in this at this point, but this is certainly a controversy that is just at the front end here in Washington.
Yeah, it certainly is absolutely intriguing. We know, of course, that there are recordings as well as transcripts of his former national security advisor talking with Russian officials. That was handled by the FBI. So is it possible they have other transcripts? Should the president be worried?
Well, it is possible that they have other transcripts, Linda, and we don't really know that much about this investigation because the investigation is in secret. And it is possible that Trump or some of his associates were under some sort of surveillance by the government. But if that happens, it goes through a very specific route, through a special secret court called the FISA court. And in order to get accept the recommendation for surveillance from that court, you need a great degree of evidence for that to be approved. And that does not come directly from the White House. That comes through investigators who file a motion with the court. So there could be other surveillance that was undertaken, and there could be other transcripts. As we mentioned before, this investigation is still at its front end, so we don't know what it could ultimately lead, where it could ultimately lead.
Right. Well, we'll come back to you in just a second, Ryan. I want to go to Nic for the Russian response. Over the last few days, President Trump's team has called this story fake. It's a word he likes to use. What's Russia saying?
Well, they've also called the reports about their ambassador, Sergei Kislyak, they've also called those reports that he was a spy, and as well have denied that they had any involvement in trying to affect the outcome of the US elections, hacking into DNC computers. They say they don't interfere in the internal affairs of other countries. They've called all those allegations here lies. They've called it media vandalism. They've called it a witch hunt. The foreign minister himself, Sergei Lavrov, calling it a witch hunt. You know, all these developments in Washington have very negative implications for Moscow here at a time when Moscow, or rather a few weeks now after, at a time when Moscow thought that it could have a better and improved relationship with President Trump. So at the moment, they're really just standing back and looking at what's happening in Washington, and potentially with each further development, in a way, like the tweets today, further scratching their heads about the way that this is going to go. But from Russia's perspective, they are caught up in what they describe as an emotionally charged atmosphere in Washington, internal US politics that's casting a shadow over a relationship that they were hoping to develop, making them realize that perhaps, as they were describing a few months ago, the worst relationship since the Cold War under President Obama's administration, recognizing that potentially that's the direction that this new relationship, the one they had so much hope in, is now headed, Lynda.
Okay, Nic, and just back to Ryan on some of these conversations. It doesn't seem unusual for US officials, even those, you know, that are campaigning an election, to have conversations with ambassadors from foreign countries. But it seems in this case the issue is that none of these conversations were disclosed.
Yeah, I think that is the big problem here, Lynda. You know, particularly with the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, it was during a hearing in front of a group of senators under oath where he was asked directly if he'd met with any Russian officials, and he said no. Now, his explanation for that is because he never met with them in his role as a campaign surrogate, but instead as a member of the Senate, even though one of those meetings did happen during the Republican convention. So, you know, as these start to bubble out, you've got the one issue with Sessions, but then there are, you know, a myriad of Trump staffers who have now confirmed that they did, in fact, talk with officials from the Russian government. And then you had the president himself a few weeks ago in a press conference directly refute those accusations and said that no one that he was aware of from his campaign were talking to Russians. So there seems to be a bit of a disconnect here between what the Trump administration and the Trump campaign is saying about those interactions and then what we're ultimately learning about them. And with every day, there appears to be a new revelation, which is to a certain extent why there is some kind of dispersions cast upon Trump and his administration at this point.
All right, well, we do know that there are several investigations underway, and Democrats and even some top Republicans now are calling for an independent investigation. So we will see if that happens. Ryan Nobles, great to have you in Washington. And Nic Robertson, we know you've had a long day. Thank you very much for staying up late for us. We appreciate it.